I'm Kirk Benson. I've been friends with Scott since 1998. Here on my speech it says intro. I don't really have a good intro, so I'll just say it's nice to be here today to remember Scott with everybody. I'll start with I miss my friend Scott. I miss him very much. I know everyone else does as well. I wish I could be here today to see how many people he touched, and as I share a few stories, I know what individual relationships Scott had with so many people. And so as I tell my story, I know he had stories with you. Unfortunately, at every memorial, there's a past, present, and future. So I'm going to touch on each of those. So I first met Scott, or Scotty as I called him, and Courtney, my wife, called him, and I know many other people here called him, in the summer before 1998. At a Minnesota-Boston University event that we were going to go to, and I think to nobody's surprise here, he had business cards already made with his dorm room. He got his dorm room number. I didn't think that was possible. That was written down. He had his email address, and as we got settled in and I unpacked, I used that business card to call him, and then he answered, Scott McKinney. Then we went down, Carol took us down, we got lobster in Faneuil Hall, and we were friends ever since, right? So over the next 25 years, we bonded over pledging Kappa Sigma together, over a lot of music, Jimmy Buffett, Metallica, even a lot of Britney Spears. He could never get me into Garth Brooks. And then a lot of travel. So originally all over the U.S., Europe, originally with no money, then a little bit more money. And then it was wonderful for Courtney to join us, and then Tracy to join us, and I know how much he loved you, and you loved him. And then we officially became friends at a very weird restaurant and odd club in Barcelona. There's a story for another time. So the Scott I knew was goofy, funny, clumsy, moody, a connoisseur of movie quotes. But the biggest thing to me is he was very, very giving. So just two quick examples. So between freshman and sophomore year, with some financial aid snafu, I didn't know if I was going back to Boston University. And he wrote me the nicest handwritten card, like to my address. And I've still got it, and I cherish it. And then at Andrew Gunderson's kind of bachelor party in New Orleans, and I made a comment like, oh, it's been a stressful week. I showed up, and the hotel room we were sharing was had everything, like water, candy, literally everything, like 3 ice buckets. He was just so kind and giving, and he really, really listened. As my wife can attest, I'm pretty stubborn, and I literally don't listen to that many people. Scotty was one of those people, and I have so many things to thank for him. Includes Brooks Brothers shirts, wearing earplugs when I go to bed, and he'd always give me advice like, don't wear the same suit coat you wear to any event twice in the same day. You might see this later on, so I'm going to break that one. Even in the middle of a severe mental health crisis, I was making deviled eggs for a party, and I mentioned this on the phone to him, and he said, put a potato chip in the middle of it. It will make it amazing, and it's really good. So as I move to the present, I'll state the obvious. Scott's no longer with us, and my guess is we all have a lot of questions. I certainly do. Scott battled mental illness and unfortunately lost that battle. I talked to my mom, who's been in mental health for 50 years, and she basically said 2 things. So Scott did not want to have a disordered brain. No one would. He tried a great many things to bring order, or his idea of it, back into his life, and for whatever reason he couldn't, and he couldn't see the people here today that loved him and supported him. She also mentioned there are 6 stages of grief: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance, and there's a 6th stage, which is action. And so, I'll talk about the action I'll take is one, I think it's okay to ask questions. I think it's okay to talk about it. I don't think we're going to get all the answers ever, but it's okay to try. And the other thing for the action I'm going to take is just ask people how they're doing, right? So 20 to 30% of people in the United States and probably the world have depression at any point in time. I was going to say 5%, but Scott liked numbers, so 4.4% of people any time in their life have a bipolar episode, right? And so it's worth talking to that. And then as we all move forward, at some point, wherever we are on that change curve, it's easy for me. Every time I wear Brooks Brothers every day. So he's with me every day. I wear earplugs every day. He's with me every day. So I'm going to think of him kind of all the time. There's Scott, at least to me, used a lot of movie quotes. I don't know if he did with others, but I think the other thing is, and if I give you a big hug later, I apologize, but just to quote Tommy Boy, brothers don't shake hands, brothers got a hug, right? And if you look around, Scott's leaving a legacy. So 4 amazing kids, Clayton, Katie, Tyler, Madison. You're all very loved. He loved you very much. The whole McKinney clan, Jim, Carol, Kelsey, Chris, all the nieces and nephews. An amazing wife in Tracy and her great family in the Johnson family. And then look at everybody here, right? It's amazing. And I look forward to celebrating his life and sharing my stories and hearing your stories throughout today. So with that, I'll end with Scott, I miss you. Everyone here misses you. You were a true friend, AEKDB brother. May you found the peace and the order you were looking for.
Hi, everybody. I've got some notes. I'm not sure if... I'm not sure how far I'm going to make it, but I'm going to try. I know some of you, not all. I've got a funny accent and a funny name. My name is Hendrey Ackerman. Scott did love numbers, but we were both CFOs, and CFOs like to round up. So I met Scott 8 years ago, but let's call it 10, and then I can talk about the last decade. So my employer that I worked for in South Africa, a company bought his company, Mattress Room, that he worked at that point in time. So my family and I moved to the US in early 2017, but I met Scott in June 2016 in Houston. First things that struck me, obviously he was on the other side of the table, was smart and very, very professional. Very organized through the whole diligence process. That was my initial feeling towards Scott. Then we obviously moved here. I don't know how it worked out, but we basically lived 2 blocks away from them. Still live in the same house today. Between our 2 families, we have 7 kids, so at least we're trying to grow the US population back. We worked together very, very closely from 2016 until early 2020. As I look at call it the work piece, I've never worked with anybody but a higher work ethic for, I think, about a 2-year stretch. I think, and some of the people in the room, we were, at least me and Scott, we were in the office 7 days a week. He never complained. He was effectively my partner in crime, and even eventually at some point we named him deputy. I don't even know if that's a title in the US, and I thought, well, maybe that's part of the Texas cowboy things, but he's definitely one of the most competent people I've ever worked with. On a family side, I'll reiterate what was said. I think it's truly better to give than to receive, and since I met Scott, everything he was giving to our family. They were the first family to welcome us to our new home, new country. I had 3 kids, 2 of them that couldn't really understand or speak English, and they would check in on us, bring us food, made us feel at home, and I wasn't sure if that's Texan hospitality or Southern hospitality or just Scott, but I think in the end it's just Scott. Our family spent a lot of great times together. He was definitely the best host. To my detriment, I love cooking, and I always thought I was good at it until I went to Scott's house, and my kids to this day will also always prefer Mr. Scott's ribs, Mr. Scott's steaks, Mr. Scott's pizza. So I don't like him for that part. We had so many fun family trips together with all the kids. A couple, like one of our first summers going to Galveston, and they told me this is the beach, and I won't show you pictures where we're from Cape Town, but Galveston is not the beach, but the kids loved it, and we had a great time. We took our families together to the Cayman Islands, went skiing in Colorado, went to Jackson. I'll forever cherish those memories. Then here in Houston at least, or I think the whole Texas, we had a giant big freeze, and all the power went out, and they're 2 blocks away, but somehow our power didn't go out, but theirs got out, and they effectively moved into our house. We were, well, I can't even do the math now, and I should be able to do the math. I think we were 12 people in our home for 4 days, effectively, or 3 days without power, and Scott arrived with, I don't know, it felt like 4 fridges full of food, and we turned a bad event into a really good family time together, and the kids all made Christmas beds, and it was amazing. We had so many weekends in the summer around the Southside Pool with all the kids. This is obviously an incredibly tough chapter, but about 18 months ago, I had a brain tumor, and I had to go through massive surgery, and it felt like at some point I was saying goodbye to my 3 kids. Scott was by my side all the way. His passions and biggest love was his 4 kids. Clayton, Katie Page, Tyler, Madison. He set an example for those 4 kids that I'm trying to emulate and follow for mine. His children will always be children in our home. I'll always continue to share sort of stories with his kids about their loving, kind, and wonderful dad. When I got the news, I honestly didn't know what to do. Still have a giant hole. So I basically put on my earbuds and I didn't know what to do and just went for a run, and I just asked God to show me and give me strength, and I normally put on music and it goes on random. And I just prayed and ran and thought I'd never come back, but the first song that played was called Scars in Heaven, which I've now listened to in excess of 200 times, and on that one I'm not rounding up. And I'll just read you the first lyrics, but it basically says, if I had only known the last time would be the last time, I would have put off all the things I had to do. I would have stayed a little longer, held on a little tighter. Like Scott always said, like, brothers, don't shake hands, they hug. Now, what would I give to be one more day with you? There's a wound in my heart where something's missing. And they tell me it's going to heal with time. But the one thing I at least know and find comfort in is the last part of the lyrics basically saying, but I know you're in a place where all your wounds have been erased, and knowing your wounds are gone will heal mine. All of us. I'm sorry, guys. I'm nearly done, I hope. So when I grew up in South Africa in the apartheid era, so my hero or role model was Nelson Mandela, and still is today. And one of his famous quotes was, "There is no passion to be found in playing small, in settling for a life that is less than the one you're capable of living." And then, I think it's in the movie, and Scott loved quotes, but Serendipity, there was a quote, I believe it to be true, but basically said, "Did you know the ancient Greeks didn't write obituaries when a man passed? They only asked one question when a man died. And the question was, did he have passion?" And everybody here knows, and Scott had some of the most passion, and he lived a life full of passion and full of joy, and he was the most giving person I've ever met in my life. I come from a small family. Now I've got lots of kids and much bigger, but I only have one sibling, and I only have my mother left, and I've only got a sister. I have no true earthly brother. But Scott was my brother, and I'll miss you.
Good morning. I'm Amy Evans. I'm the school counselor at St. Mark's. And for many of you in the room, I get to know you through the eyes of your children. And that is how I know Scott McKinney. Katie has asked me to share something that she wrote 2 weeks ago with me. My dad was a great man. He was kind and wanted his loved ones to always be safe. But God decided his time on earth was up. There are two things no human can control: death and time. He lived a great, fulfilling life, full of happiness, love, and laughter. But there's now only two things we are left to do: mourn his loss or be happy that he is in heaven. I am choosing to be happy for him in heaven. But you can choose anything you want. We all have special memories we will remember of him. My favorite is watching movies with him on some Saturday nights. We would watch Star Wars with Clayton and sometimes Mommy. We also watch Cinderella, the real version, with living characters. I will always love my dad and love him forever. Katie McKinney.